Welcome to our podcast today. In conversation with us is a very special guest. She is the Nnabagereka, Her Royal Highness, Queen Consort Sylvia Najinda Ruswata. She is the Queen of Buganda. Your Royal Highness, you're very, very welcome to our podcast. Thank you for gracing us with your time and with your presence. And as we begin, I'd like you to tell our listeners a bit about yourself, just something they wouldn't know. What is your best color? What food do you like to eat? If you could pick a country apart from Uganda to live in, what country would it be?
Thank you very much, Jackie, for having me. Well, you started with a very tough one, talking about myself. Well, I think I'm pretty much a very relaxed or laid-back person. However, I can be extremely strict when it comes especially to organization and cleanliness. I'm extremely rigid about that. I don't have any favorites, believe it or not. Like when it comes to color, food, I do, however, I must say that favorite colors, like I said, I don't have favorites, but I tend to lean towards the blacks, the browns, and the navy blues, I guess, all which sound a bit dull, but I also go with bright colors if I have to. And favorite foods, again, I don't have favorite foods, but I like eating beans, peas, groundnuts, rice, and
I'm a beans girl too. I love beans. I love beans.
I like that. Although I do eat meat as well. When it comes to animals, I don't really cozy with any of them, but I appreciate dogs from far. And I tend to be scared by most crawling things that crawl. Tend to be scared with those kind of things. Favorite place? I've traveled quite a bit. And there are many places out there, beautiful places. I love being in Uganda, that one I must say for sure.
Yes.
But being out also in where there's nature. For example, I really enjoyed my trip to Burundi. I don't know if you've been to Burundi.
I have.
Tracking the gorillas.
Yes, I have.
That was beautiful. I've enjoyed the Niagara Falls. That's also like another wonder. And I enjoyed there's a safari. So, those nature trips are very interesting. If you ask me one place that I would like to visit other than Uganda, I'd like to see the Taj Mahal, actually. I've never been there. The Taj Mahal. And my daughter always talks about Patagonia in Argentina, at the tip of Argentina. That would be also a good place to visit at some point.
Okay.
Yes.
Very nice. No, it's interesting that we share very similar interests.
No.
So, CivSource is an organization that is passionate about telling our story of giving and generosity. And when I say our, I mean Uganda, I mean Africa. Because the global narrative, unfortunately, is that Africa is a dark place, least developed. And yet we know, having lived and been brought up on this continent, that there's so much richness and beauty and generosity. And so that's what our conversation is going to explore today.
Okay.
So if you go back in time as a young person, what was your first experience of generosity?
My first experience of generosity was actually at a home where I grew up with my grandparents. I grew up with my grandparents, and looking back, they were extremely generous people. For one, they welcomed everybody in the house. They had children, a number of them, but also grandkids were welcome. The whole extended family, and not only that, even the community around us, where we lived in Kumba, I really saw that they reached out. My grandfather always reached out to those who are less privileged than he was, by paying school fees for the children, housing for the neighbors, and he built a church before he passed, and that was his the climax. He said, now after I built this church, even if I die, I'm fine. So he did so many acts of generosity, not just the close family, but the extended, and also the community where he lived and beyond. So this is where, for me, this is my memory of that kind of generosity. Everybody was welcome. I remember our house was an open house, in the sense that everyone was welcome at any time and could stay. We have this saying in Luganda which says, "Gendancha adagulo." In those days, this is how it was. That is, it goes in the morning, comes back in the evening, and that was really the door. They open the door in the morning and they close it in the evening. Nice. So, this is how it was.
Yeah,
you don't really. The house was always open. Yeah. People would come in, and there was always food for whoever walked in, no matter what time. I don't know how they did it, actually, looking back. And people would come in and would stay. If you stayed at night, that was even better. The more the merrier.
Yes.
So, and actually, when I go back to my grandfather's place, which is still there, it wasn't, I think as a child I saw it as such an enormous place, big, because of all these people that were in that house. But when I look at it today, I say, how did we all fit? I know. Especially the bedroom where we used to sleep. How did we all fit? But everyone was welcome, and there was, nothing was, no matter how little, whatever was there in terms of food, it was always enough for me. So for me, that's, growing up in such a household that was, with our grandparents, very generous to not just us, but everybody else who cared to come to the house.
Wow.
It was my first signs of generosity.
Okay. And the Buganda, the people that you lead, are also known for their rich heritage and culture and practice of generosity. Where does that come from? Or how do the Buganda express generosity?
Okay. I think it's the grooming, the childhood grooming that you get in a Chiganda home, in a Muganda home, is, it translates into generosity. And how does that happen? For example, you walk in a house and you're greeted. There's this expression that people always use, to say "Nyokolaba," we're very happy to see you. And when I look back, my grand aunts or my grandparents and people from the olden days, they were really happy to see you. They have this expression that you are welcome. So it's not, and it's not just like hi, but it's we're really, and then they'll sit you down, and the whole process of greeting, how are you? And really meaning how are you? And they want to know. And then of course the conversation would go on to explain how people were at home, we didn't, somebody wasn't well, or something bad happened, or they're all fine. So someone really cares to know how you are. And then really taking it from there. And so you grow up seeing this, that when guests come in, you welcome them, you greet them, and genuinely want to know how they are, and respectfully, if they're your elders, you'll either sit down or kneel down and greet them, with respect. And also the older people actually were so cordial to the kids, because they'll say, oh, Mukwano, my friend. There's always that expression of Mukwano, even if it's a young child, or so it was always there. And of course I talked about that open door where people just come in, and so that was, for me, when I think about it, it was a lot of trust. There was so much trust then that people would just welcome anybody, and you don't have to call to make an appointment that I'm coming, or can I come? We're so busy, you can't come, So it was, trusting people to that level that anyone can really walk in your house anytime, and the care, all that. If you grow up in such a household, it's, it kind of translates into that generosity, that you welcome people, you trust them, and I think that's also in Uganda, you really care about others, not just for those people in your household,
Yes.
but your neighbors' kids.
Yes,
If you're
yes.
there walking around and something is happening to them, you would be concerned, what's happening, So they are also your business,
Yes.
which is obviously not the case anymore.
Yeah.
So this is how I think we were kind of brought up, and so if you grow up in such a household, you kind of tend to emulate the same as you get older.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you were referencing back then.
Yeah.
We're in 2020, as young people say. So do you think expressions of generosity have changed among the Baganda, and if so, how?
To a large extent, they have, unfortunately. And I mean, one of the reasons I think there's not much trust. We don't have that open door policy anymore.
Yeah.
And the trust isn't there for so many reasons. When you look at, globally, there's a lot of scare in terms of terrorism.
Yes,
People coming in. You don't trust the person sitting next to you, whether you're in a bus or a taxi or an aeroplane. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if they're good people, they're bad people.
Yeah.
So there isn't any more trust. So if you cannot trust somebody, it's very hard to extend to them. To want to give to them.
Yeah.
It becomes difficult. So, and the caring apparently is probably not as much. Like I said, there's not time anymore for sitting people down and say, how are you? How are your people?
Yes.
So why are you asking me all these questions? Why do you want to know what's happening in my house? Or so it's like, hello, how are you? Fine. And if you notice, it's always fine. Whether you're fine or not, it's always fine.
Yes.
But I believe then it was really a genuine greeting of wanting to know and that care.
Yeah.
So yes, things have actually changed, and I think this is why sometimes we have these programs to keep kids grounded.
Yeah.
And but then you're competing with the global element of this high tech, social media, the TV. So and it becomes very difficult for parents today. I think in our growing up, our parents were not competing with the media to bring us up.
Yes.
They would sit you down, tell you this is how things are, give you instructions on how they are, and you go with that. Today you do it, then your child will be on social media, they admire, they have aspirations, and they see these things being done differently in America or UK or wherever it is, and they say, how come they're doing it better and they look better off than we are? So why should I listen to my mother or my father? So it's really parents competing with
many other things,
with so many other things to bring up kids, and it's also very difficult to keep them off. So in that sense, it's it becomes, but parents are still trying. I must say they are still trying, and this is why we have some of the programs like Sakate, to help out parents, because that's really a job of the parents. But then they're also extremely busy. So, like you said, things have really changed. The circumstances are different, but we should also try our best not to lose those core things that are very important to life. If a person is to grow up and to be able to contribute to our society efficiently, and also to be useful people, so to speak.
As Queen of Buganda, as the Nnabagereka, I know one of the things that you're passionate about and have tried to do is connect culture with development. What makes it important to you?
Culture is actually our all. It's the core of our humanity. It is the totality of our inherited beliefs, traditions, values, philosophy. It influences our lives on a daily basis, all the time, in so many ways. It also gives us a sense of purpose, belonging, unity. For me, I believe that the more you understand yourself, who you are, where you come from, what are your roots, the more you'll also appreciate others better and accommodate them better. So we are different as people, like in terms of, we're all human beings, but we're also God did make a mistake by making us from different races. We may have different colors, people have different religions. So there's that diversity. But if you know yourself and appreciate yourself to that level where you come from, then it's very easy to also be able to relate to others. And it creates that kind of unity. We can all be together. So culture makes you appreciate and tolerate diversity. As opposed to, thinking that, okay, if I know myself better, where I come from, my roots, it's going to put me away from other people. Not at all. Then I guess you understand others a bit better. And for me, when I think about that, I also go back again to our forefathers, grandparents, parents, the welcoming nature of the Buganda. And for me, I think it's the roots are those, to the fact that we really very proud. We are very proud of our culture. We're very proud of where we come from because we know the roots. Someone can know their lineage from time immemorial, maybe not necessarily me, but many people do, and they understand their clans, they understand themselves to that level. And so if you do that, then you open doors to others. They're not like, they may not be like you, they're not your culture, but you welcome, you tolerate them. And I think this is what has happened and still happening. And as far as Buganda being very accommodating and welcoming of people from other regions, not just that, but also other countries. So to that level, culture is very important. And so we use culture to guide us. Like it is a tool that can be used to aid growth and development. And we particularly choose the positive culture, because in culture too there are negative practices, and these negative practices, which we may call them negative now, maybe at that point they were not, but today they are totally unacceptable. And some were probably even negative then, but it was never realized. And today people are able to speak up and say those negative practices, culture practices, traditional practices, should not be happening at this point. So what we do is we take the positive aspects of culture and use those, and there are many of them. I'll give you an example. One of them is the Ubuntu Bulamu, which is also referred to almost the same in other parts of Africa. But it is a system of values, and these values, for example, integrity, industriousness, patience, and you have all these, the values that are actually embedded in their respect, transparency. All those are values that are embedded in this one word, Ubuntu Bulamu. And for me, there you have a solution to so many things, whether it's political, economic, social, whatever it is. This is where it lies, although people might not want to see it that way, or they don't see it that way, or they do and they just ignore it. So to that extent, culture is very important, and it will remain important.
Yes, it will. So if we talk a bit about the Nnabagereka Foundation, which you started, it is an expression for me and an extension of your generosity, your generous heart and spirit. What made you start the Nnabagereka Foundation?
The Nnabagereka Foundation, I think I can, when I look back, I left Uganda. I was raised here, grew up here until after my secondary school. But when I left to go to the US, I promised myself I have to go back home, and because I want to be involved in contributing to the development of my country. So that was in the early 1980s, and I remember I had said I'm staying for only 5 years. That's when I went to the US. Of course, I stayed longer, but throughout the time that I was there, when I went to university and I worked, I always had that at the back of my mind. And when I was studying, I would always focus on projects that are related to what's happening at home, or how am I going to be able to use my skills and experiences here to, when I get back home. I studied journalism and public relations, and so I said, okay, even throughout my projects, I would think about, okay, how do I use communication for development? And I created some public service announcements, which I sent to UTV so they can air them, things like that. So I always had this at the back of my mind, and I knew that one day I'm going back home. I didn't know exactly how, but I knew I was, and to work home. And so eventually I did come back after 18 years in the US, although I thought I would be 5. And so when I got here, and I did come back in the way that I did as the Nnabagereka, which even gave me a better platform to be able to do what I've always dreamt of. I didn't think right away, how am I going to be able to do this? But quickly I thought, okay, and first of all, at that time, there were so many issues, like in terms of challenges that were facing us as a country. Still, we do have these, some of them, to maybe some to a lesser extent. But, looking around, we had issues in education, health, the community development, and the children, the physically handicapped. There was a lot of, there's so many gaps and a lot of suffering that went on to do with women issues. There was quite a bit. So I said, okay, what do? I can't do everything. So I tried to focus on certain areas. And then in doing that, I said, okay, I'm going to establish an organization. That was in 2000. That will be a vehicle through which I'll be, carrying out my work. And so I decided to specifically focus on children and women, and later on the youth, and mainly in the areas of health and education at that point. So this is how I started.
Okay.
Yes.
So and it's 20 years now, right?
21 actually.
Wow, that is a journey. 21. So when you look back over the 20 years, if you could pick 2 moments or 2 things that you're absolutely proud of and that affirm the reason that you started the Nnabagereka Foundation, what would they be?
Over the 20 years is actually a long time. A lot has actually happened. And I've really been given the opportunity to also work with so many other organizations and do so many other things. But with the Nnabagereka Development Foundation, I think I can, if I really wanted to zero it down as you want me to, I can talk about education and the well-being of children as one. And that is being able to make some changes, or to contribute actually. For example, when I think about building the dormitory for the Kampala School for the physically handicapped, that really helped to get more children who needed the service in the school, to sleep more kids. There was a 50-bed dormitory. Although right now I understand it needs repairs, and we'll have to get back to that. But we helped renovate some classrooms in Masoli. Also there, the situation wasn't good in terms of where the kids were starting from. So we were able to do that. Providing scholastic materials for a number of years to children who would have actually dropped out of school. But, simple things which some of us take for granted. As uniforms, books, sanitary wear, and also just giving kids opportunity to go to school, and not just to be in school, but be comfortable in school, or like to be in school. That is, I think, one area that when I look back, I feel that that is something that I've contributed to. But also we have our flagship program, which is HRH and Nnabagereka. It is running for it's about 13 years now since it started. And what it is an information and education program that uses culture to develop kids to improve their lives, or to ground them, so to speak, as I mentioned before. And we believe that children or human beings should be caught earlier on in life. And what happens in those first 5-10 years of life really defines the person.
Yeah.
You know, so this is why, and since we don't have that element of where the children were so much, the parents were so much involved. Today they are extremely busy. They are not involved anymore.
Yeah.
So this program actually just comes in to supplement. I don't think it can do everything.
Yes,
You still need parents.
yes.
You still need guardians. But instilling cultures, instilling values in these children, so that at a later time in their lives they'll be able to make better decisions. You know, when that time comes, that they won't be pulled over by peer pressure. You know, so Sakat is we have a large camp that takes place in January, and a number of kids attend that. We have over 600, about 500 to 600 kids in any one camp. And over the years, we've been able to reach over 20, I think about 25,000 children. That is directly, but there's also indirectly through the media and other just, you know, thousands of kids. And not just only from our region, Buganda, but also from other regions. They all come to be part of this, because at the end of the day, I think every parent desires their child to have a good foundation.
Indeed.
And that doesn't matter what race. And many people appreciate the way I think it's been done in the Chiganda, you know, whatever it is in Nnabagereka, as they used to call them, is very universal.
Yes.
Maybe we emphasized it more. Then you also find that some people also do it anyway. Maybe they just don't talk about it.
Yes.
And for us, we just, you know, so people appreciate it in that.
Wow. Very interesting. And then apart from the Nnabagereka Development Foundation, I know that you are part of and a core member of the African Philanthropy Forum.
Right.
So what made you lend your name and time to African philanthropy?
I was invited to be a member of the African Philanthropy Forum when it was actually still an affiliate of the Global Philanthropy Forum. And that was from about 2014. I think I joined around 2016. By 2017, it became independent. So I'm a pioneer member of the African Philanthropy Forum as it stands today. And APF, as we call it, is a strong and vibrant community of partners who, through their, I would say, through their strategic giving, their investments and influence, foster shared prosperity on the African continent. And our vision is to see that giving by Africans to Africa exceeds development aid by the year 2030.
Oh, wow.
So in that case, the effort has to be done to grow philanthropy in Africa. And so the African Philanthropy Forum right now, we're trying to, we seek to build a wide and broad base of strategic philanthropists and also social investors who are committed to inclusive and also sustainable economic development on the continent of Africa.
That's a big dream.
Yes.
That's a big dream. And when we hear about philanthropists on the continent, most of the names that come to mind first are men. And yet we know women are very generous and they give a lot. So what would be your suggestions or ideas about how to spotlight or highlight the giving done by women in this continent?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of giving going on in our communities, in Africa as a whole. So the philanthropy is not, it's usually more referred to like in terms of a Western concept.
Yes.
But as Africans, we've been giving a lot. through the years, over the years. But what I'd say as far as women go, I think women should engage more in long-term consistent giving as opposed to the short-term charity type of giving. Now, both philanthropy and charity are acts of giving, very important indeed and helpful in many respects. However, while charity is more of a short-term, one-off, quick fix, that is charity, philanthropy tends to be long-term. It is structured, organized, more strategic, and it has a long-lasting impact on society. You see? So if women can create these structures like foundations or trusts or endowment funds and give through these structures for impact, actually. And it also offers, the structures also offer a sense of perpetuity. And the effect or the impact will last a long time, long after the giver or the philanthropist is not on this earth anymore. So for me, I think this is what we should be getting more involved in as women. Now, when I talk about the structured giving, for example, here in Uganda, we have so many people who give, and whether they're family, they have family companies and they're giving, but they're still doing it more like on a charity, one-off kind of giving. And if you look back and ask them, so what was your giving last year or in the last 5 years? They've given. They're giving to so many causes, but they can't really tell, so really explain how that has been. And then sometimes you also miss out on the most important thing if you're not really structured or organized. You miss out on the most important things where your funds or you can make the biggest impact, or where they would be more useful. So we had actually a meet in Kampala with some people who we felt that trying to encourage them to structure to actually form foundations, where there's a family foundation trust, so they can their giving can be more strategic. And they hesitate to do that. So it's a job that we so when you look at it, we don't have that many foundations, yet we do have quite a number of
givers.
It's exactly a lot of givers. So that is an area I think that APF is trying a lot to do that, to make sure that to encourage these givers to structure their giving.
Indeed, what you say, strikes a chord. As CivSource, early in the year, we had meetings with private sector organizations that do CSR. We had meetings with some church leaders. COVID happened, but otherwise we were going to meet Rotary clubs, alumni clubs, because so much giving happens, as you said. One of the challenges is people don't track their giving. So if we don't track it, indeed, we can't know what areas are we giving to and what impact are we having, but also what areas are we missing that need our generosity. So very, very definitely. And probably it is our work then to continuously encourage people to see the benefits of systematizing or structuring their giving. It is long work, but it must be done. It must be done. And as we wind down our conversations, when we look at your daughter, my children, I have 2 teenage sons, or those to come after us, what should we do to groom and grow the next generation of African givers?
Well, one of the things you just noted, that is to raise awareness of the importance of strategic giving. And this can be done in a number of ways, whether it's through conferences, education programs, seminars, and such events also offer opportunities for networking, because as you network, then you're broadening your area or sphere in terms of, you know what another person is doing, what are you missing out, it helps a lot in that sense. But we should also encourage people with money and have the desire to give to structure their giving, because like we said, giving is not foreign.
Yes.
People are always giving in one way or the other. School fees here, church contributions to the church, to your local community or association, and so on and so forth. But I think we need to continuously do that through these different forums. And APF has a toolkit, and this was developed to, what it is that it's a practical, it provides practical knowledge and tools for emerging philanthropists on how they can build strong frameworks or institutions for strategic giving. So the toolkit equips one with information, skills, and knowledge, on how they can be, more efficient, effective in their giving.
Nice. Your Royal Highness, thank you so much for your time with us. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
And we wish you well. We wish you well as you do the work that needs to be done with your people and as you serve Africa as a whole.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie.